do? You are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to real impartation moment on Tuesday night anatomy with dialogue. Today's section we continue with the skeletal system insights that we have already begun. Of course, this is going to be the third part of the series. Okay, so kindly get the video links of the first two parts if you've not watched them already. But today, because last Sunday was Father's Day, I want to use this opportunity to wish all male individuals, okay, especially fathers among you who have been watching this video, okay, and not only those individuals, all males across the globe. Okay, I want to wish you happy Father's Day celebration, a belated one, of course. Now, especially to, of course, my father, Mr. Daniel Kofi Abam Okwan, a very great teacher, someone I describe as the brain behind the camera. Now, the reason is that some people think I've had some training in education. Okay, I've gone for some special training regarding teaching. No, I don't have any of such things. But my father, yes, being a very good teacher, okay, I have that kind of traits, a chip of the old block. Okay, so if you see me teaching, yes, I'm trying to walk in the footsteps of my father. For that reason, this third video regarding the series of skeletal system insight, I dedicate it fully for my father, or to my father. Okay, now similarly, I have some important teachers, okay, in my life over the years that I wish to mention their names here. Yes, I want to talk about Mr. Raymond Atobaini. Okay, I want to talk about Mr. Atusekun, Mr. Daniel Osewusu, Mr. Raymond Wachibiodu. Okay, these are some great teachers, okay, that I've met. Not forgetting Mr. Boku Abramete. Okay, some male teachers. I still want to say that I'm very grateful for all that you did for me at the various levels. But today too, I want to do something. For the first time, I want to start acknowledging, okay, individuals who one way or the other, they are so excited about whatever message they receive over here, okay, through their comments. When I see their comments, they are so encouraging and they push me to do more, okay, more of these important videos. Yes, I want to mention 3 names today. Okay, now in future I'll be mentioning them. Once I see people doing these things, I'll mention names, okay, and then I'll acknowledge you right here on this channel of mine. Okay, I'll do that over here. So I want to mention one guy, Caleb Esiama. I think he's in first year medicine at Care University. Okay, even this guy had not met me, but he had already fallen in love with me, the way I teach, okay, right here on this channel. Okay, so I want to appreciate you. Yes, similarly, I have what you call Stephanie Nyamiedu. Okay, has also been very, a wonderful person. Okay, and not forgetting an important individual. Not forgetting. Now, if you go to Christian Service University, there is one lady over there, also first year in nursing. Okay, enjoys the way I teach. Okay. Just enjoys my company, that yes, I'm able to help her impart knowledge, okay, in her right here on this channel. And that is Elena Adosakwadie, okay, of the Garden City University. She's also been doing very great. So these are the individuals I want to acknowledge. But let's quickly get into what we have to do today. Okay, in future I'll be mentioning other names. Let me see you so that I do same for you. And so, without much ado, let's set the ball rolling. Now, during the second, episode regarding the series of skeletal system insight, we looked at, of course, the various types of bones. We talked about them. We talked about, the fact that we looked at the long bone to bring out some areas by way of the epiphysis of the bone, the metaphysis of the bone. We talked about the diaphysis of the bone. Okay, so please, if you not watch these videos, all the important details are there. Kindly get the video links and watch them. But today, what I want to really, tackle today is that I told you something, okay, that supplying, what we call the medullary cavity of what we call the bone, diaphysis of the bone, alongside the inner two-thirds portion of the cortical bone. I told you about something, that there will be an artery doing that. That is called the nutrient artery. We are going to see it again here. Yes. Now, for this nutrient artery to run through, there's one important thing that you got to know, and that is something we call nutrient foramen. Nutrient foramen. So if you are an artery, you are called nutrient artery, then you traverse through what we call nutrient foramen. That is an important thing that I want you to know. Okay. Now, for that reason, one thing I want you to be aware is that we want to talk briefly about this nutrient artery. Nutrient artery. Okay. Now, this nutrient artery, why is it important? Okay, one important thing that I want you to recognize is that this nutrient artery, this nutrient foramen we are talking about, will take an oblique course. Oblique course. Now, it's not taking, horizontal course or transverse course, nor vertical course. No, it is taking an oblique course. Either oblique course downwards towards the distal epiphysis of the bone, or it's taking an oblique course towards the proximal end of the bone. That is what we have to understand here. Okay, now the first thing that we need to look at is that why is it important that we study this nutrient foramen? Yes, the reason is simple. Number one, so that we know how this nutrient artery will traverse through this bone. And why is this important? Now, sometimes there's that kind of orthopedic surgery which will be indicated. It has to be performed. So knowledge of this nutrient foramina, and for that matter what is traversing through them by way of the nutrient arteries, then you don't cause iatrogenic injury to these vessels. Okay, so that kind of surgery which is taking place because of the surgical procedure that we are doing, that injury, we call it iatrogenic injury. IAOTROG, GENIC, iatrogenic, this kind of injury. That's what we are talking about. We want to prevent that. Okay. Number two, once we are aware of this, what we call nutrient foramen, then we go to also understand that it will help us to know what we call the growing end of the bone. The growing end of the bone. Now, when you were young, your bones were relatively perhaps shorter, okay, but with time they became longer. Which portion will continuously increase in length? Okay, one portion will stop growing, increasing in length, but the other will continue to increase in length. Either it is increasing in length towards the proximal portion, or it may be increasing in length towards the distal portion. It means that this time around the proximal end, okay, will be stationary at a point, and then the distal end will continue to increase in length. Okay, that is also very useful. Okay, so that is what we want to demonstrate over here. So what we are talking about is we are talking about nutrient foramina, nutrient foramen. So whenever we talk about nutrient foramen, okay, what you should understand is that the plural form of foramen becomes foramina. Now, another principle, what you usually find is that one long bone, one nutrient foramen. Yes, that's what we see, normal case scenario. Okay, so one village, one dam, one district, one factory, one student, one laptop. This time we are talking about one bone, one nutrient foramen. Okay, that is what we see. But my friends, there's a catch. What we find is that there are some bones, okay, of some individuals, they may present with double nutrient foramina. So all these anatomic variations, okay, you need to be aware of them so that you know the deviations, okay, you attend to them, very well, okay. Otherwise, you may be causing iatrogenic, injuries to some of these things, okay. So that is, one thing you should be aware of. Especially, we find this double nutrient foramina, okay, regarding the males. So sometimes the tibia, the fibula may present with a double nutrient foramina, especially for the males. And what's the reason? Now, I told you that this nutrient foramen will be allowing nutrient arteries which are very important blood supply to the bone. Okay, and you know that generally males, we tend to be involved more in this kind of manual work. So it makes sense that giving the bone nutrients by way of this arterial blood supply, nourishing the what do you call it, this bone. Okay, because males are more involved in this kind of loading activities, okay, strenuous activities, then it makes sense that God equipped some of the bones of such individuals, okay, with double nutrient foramina. Okay, that's what we see. Okay, so that is that one. Now, for us to understand it again, one other thing too that will help you. Okay, all these things, they are helping you to prevent or to minimize the occurrences of iatrogenic injuries during orthopedic surgeries when they are indicated. Okay, is that number one? For the upper limb bones, what we find is that normally the nutrient foramina, we tend to see them, okay, anteriorly oriented, anteriorly placed. Bones of the upper limb. Okay, and when we talk about bones of the upper limb, we are talking about that of the humerus, radius, all that. Okay, they tend to be directed. Okay, they tend to be placed more anteriorly in the bone, the diaphysis of the bones. However, in the case of the lower limb, we tend to be displaced at the posterior aspect, especially at the posterior aspect of these bones, by way of the femur, you know, the tibia and fibula. That's what generally we see. And why are we saying this? Because during development, there's some kind of rotation, about 90 degrees rotation of the bones of the upper limb toward the lateral aspect. But in the case of the lower limb, there's about 90 degrees rotation, okay, medially. That is why some of these, you know, things we talk about them. Okay, so that's also another thing that I want you to be aware of. Good. So now once you understand this, then what we are saying is that in the case, now there are some important facts that we should be aware of. Number one, in the case of long bones of the upper limb, okay, they are nutrient foramina. Now this is my elbow joint, the anterior aspect over here. I have the elbow joint over here, okay, between the arm and the forearm. What we are saying is that the bones of the upper limb, their nutrient foramina are directed obliquely towards the elbow joint. That's what we see. So there's a simple mnemonic that goes this way. Okay, to the elbow I go. To the elbow I go. I go. Now, this guy, that is for what we call the upper limb bones. Upper limb bones. Okay, so we are moving towards the elbow joint. Now, what do I mean by this? What I mean is that, for instance, if I take, now this is the elbow, this is the humerus. Now we are going, the upper limb bones, okay, we are going towards the elbow joint. So there's an oblique, okay, so it will be going this way, obliquely downwards in the case of the humerus, toward the elbow joint. Okay, now however, for the radius and the ulna, they will take an oblique course rather towards what we call the elbow joint. That is what we are going to see. Okay, so if I'm having the radius, you are going towards the elbow. So the nutrient foramen, okay, will be oriented downwards, this way obliquely, towards the elbow joint. Now for the radius, as well as of course the ulna, what we will see, okay, is that rather they will be going towards the elbow joint. So it means that now the elbow joint will be here, so the nutrient foramina will be directed upwards towards the elbow joint. That is what we see. Okay, good. Now in the case of the lower limb, that is not what we see. Now in the case of the lower limb, by way of the tibia, the fibula and the femur, what will happen is that they are also related to a joint. That's the knee joint. So the knee joint, they are rather moving away from the knee joint. So that of the lower limb, okay, the mnemonic goes this way: from the knee I flee. From the knee I flee. Okay, and that is for bones of the lower limb, the long bones of the lower limb. Okay, so that is another useful point you should be aware of. Okay, So what it means is that in the case of the tibia of the femur, okay, this is the area of the knee joint. Now we are fleeing, we are moving away. So it means that the nutrient foramen will be directed obliquely upwards, away from this, knee joint over here. Now, in the case of the fibula, yes, the same way. This time around, this is the distal portion of this is the proximal portion of fibula. Distal portion is over here. Now, it is also related to what we call the knee joint, although it's the non-weight bearing portion. That contribute to knee joint formation, but it's important in this stability over there. So what we are saying is that because this is the knee joint, we are fleeing, we are moving away from the knee joint. It means that the nutrient foramen of the fibula will be obliquely directed downwards, and for that matter, the same way, the nutrient artery will be running downwards in this manner. In the case of the tibia, yes, so the knee joint will be here, the proximal aspect of the tibia. Means that the nutrient foramen will be moving away from it, so it will be obliquely oriented downwards. Now, if you take a very close look at this guy over here, you see there's this foramen over here. If you take a closer look, it's not going upwards, it's fleeing away from this knee joint, therefore it's obliquely directed downwards. It means that the nutrient artery will also be obliquely directed downwards in this manner. So these are the nutrient foramina that I want you to be aware of. Now, once I'm aware of the nutrient foramen, then I'm also aware of the direction of what we call the growing end of the bone. But before I tell you about that one, again, if I look at the clavicle, the collarbone. Now, the last time I told you that it's a special long bone because all other long bones, they are vertically oriented in the body. This is the only long bone which is horizontally placed in the body, horizontally placed. So this is the clavicle. Now the clavicle, rather, the direction of its nutrient foramen is directed towards the lateral end of the bone, obliquely. It means that towards the medial end of the bone will be the growing end. So whenever you have the direction of the nutrient foramen going, then the opposite end becomes the growing end of the bone. Okay, so that is one useful thing that I want you to be aware of. Now, once we've seen that, let me just sketch out something and then show you something briefly. Now, assuming I have this to be a long bone, so take it that there's a long bone. Now, once there's a long bone, okay, what we will see is that I'm saying that at a point, what we will see a foramen in the diaphysis. What we are calling this foramen, okay, this foramen over here is what we are calling nutrient foramen, nutrient foramen. Okay, now look at it. What is the direction? It is obliquely directed downwards. It's going downwards. Now what it means is that the nutrient artery will also be running downwards in this manner. But what you will see is that it means that now I'm supposed to have Harley College, which I call it physis, that's the epiphyseal plate. Okay. Now you will see that what will happen is that this one will fuse early. Okay, so this one, okay, because this nutrient artery is directed downwards, and I'm having two epiphyseal plates, one of them will fuse earlier. Now, whenever the epiphyseal plate fuses, the name becomes what? Epiphyseal line. The last time we explained that. So this one at this point here, which has fused earlier, becomes what we call epiphyseal line. Epiphyseal line. And whenever we talk about this epiphyseal line, it means that there has been something called synostosis. Synostosis has taken place. Synostosis. In other words, Initially it was Harley College, which you know of it already, that this is the epiphyseal plate. Epiphyseal plate, which I told you that is the same as root plate. It's the same as physis, and it is made of hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage. Okay, that is what we explained the last time. Now, we said that initially we are having two at both ends of the bone, but one will fuse earlier, okay, than the other. Okay, that is what we see, and that fusion we call it anastomosis, so that it becomes bony. Now, over here, this one hasn't fused. Why? Because still growth is going to take place. So for us to predict which one will fuse earlier, then knowledge of the direction of the nutrient artery becomes important. Because now I know that this is the growing end of the bone. Now the activities in the cartilage cells over here will help in what we call elongation of these bones. Elongation of these bones. And that elongation of these bones, the growth of that bone increasing in length, is something that is worth mentioning. It's one of the ways in which bones grow, and they grow in length. We call it interstitial growth of the bone. Interstitial growth. Okay, that is what we see. So it is taking place where? In these epiphyseal plates. And once the growth, yes, reaches its maximum, yes, these, chondroblasts, okay, all these chondrocytes in here, they become exhausted. And the bone, yes, everything will become bone, like this one, becomes epiphyseal line. So whenever there is fusion of epiphyseal plates, we get epiphyseal line. Okay, that is what we see. And that is anastomosis, it has become bony. Okay, so that is one thing you should be aware of. Now, once you've seen the direction of the nutrient foramen, then I know the growing end of the bone. It means that this bone will be growing in this manner, the opposite direction. Opposite to the direction of this nutrient foramen. This one is going downwards. Okay, so that is what we see. Now the last time too, I also told you that yes, it's not only Harley College that we have over here. We have Harley College also lining the articular areas where they are going to make joints. Okay, and these are what we call, because they are making joints, that becomes articular college. Last time I told you that, whenever we are making joints, it's also called articulation or arteries. So articular cartilage. Okay, over here. So that is one thing I want you to understand. Okay, so regarding the direction of these kind of nutrients, foramina, and therefore the nutrient artery. So we want to look at, if you've seen this nutrient foramina, importantly, I want to explain something regarding the blood supply, arterial supply to of course the bone, and bring an important clinical scenario in here why we tend to see osteomyelitis, inflammation of the bone caused by bacterial infection, okay, happening more in children than in adults. So we want to explain that basis over here. So the topic, the next one we want to look at is the arterial blood supply to, of course, the bone. We want to see that arterial supply to the bone. So blood supply to the bone. Okay, to the bone. That's what we want to look at. Now, for that reason, draw this diagram exactly the way I'm going to draw it for you. Draw it exactly the same way I'm going to draw it. Okay, so Okay, so this is the diagram that we have now. Okay, just draw it exactly, the same way. Now you are aware that, of course, I'm having the epiphysis. This is the proximal epiphysis. This is the distal epiphysis. Then, of course, I'll have what we call the intermediate diaphysis, that's the shaft. Now, the last time too, I told you that these areas, which we call them the metaphysis, okay, they are what we call the epiphyseal ends of diaphysis, okay, the epiphyseal ends of diaphysis. Now this is what we are going to see. Now first, just draw it this way. Let's have the nutrient foramen, assuming the nutrient foramen is over here, okay, which is directed obliquely downwards. It means that the growing end of the bone will be this way. Now that is the reason why, okay, this one has undergone synostosis, okay, but this one I still have the epiphyseal plate. The one in blue over here is the epiphyseal plate, okay, you get to understand that. So it means that the growing end of the bone is the opposite aspect, so it will be increasing in length in this manner, interstitial growth. Now once you've done that, there will be an artery, okay, which will be entering this bone, okay. So this artery, okay, because it's running through the nutrient foramen, then of course we will call it nutrient artery. Nutrient artery. Very important. And one thing I want you to write there right now, yes, is to indicate that this nutrient artery supplies, now it is going in here, it said the medullary cavity, supplies the medullary cavity, number one. Then it also supplies what we call the inner two-thirds portion of the cortical bone of the diaphysis. So put those 2 points down. Yes, it is supplying the medullary cavity, and again it will be supplying what we call the inner two-thirds portion of the cortical bone of the diaphysis. Okay, that is good. That's the nutrient artery. Now immediately this nutrient artery enters the bone, what will happen is that it will divide into two, okay, to give two branches. Now last time I told you that arteries will have branches, they will divide, giving us branches. So we have branches of arteries. So this artery, the branches that we are talking about is that one is moving upwards from it, therefore this one becomes ascending branch of nutrient artery. Ascending branch of the nutrient artery. Okay? Then it means that the one who is going down becomes, of course, the descending branch. Descending branch of the nutrient artery. Of this nutrient artery. Okay, so that is what we see. Now, what happens is that, yes, this epiphysis, okay, is also going to get blood supply from neighboring, vessels. They will give us some branches to it. So this epiphysis too, there will be some branches, okay, coming in from either side. So what do you think? They will be called epiphyseal arteries. So these arteries will be called epiphyseal arteries. Okay, so that's what we see. Now, once you've seen these epiphyseal arteries, then the next thing is that even this area, which is the metaphysis, okay, will also be receiving some branches, okay, from neighboring vessels. Okay, so this one too will give us some branch. Okay, so that is what we see over here. So it means that these arteries will be called metaphyseal arteries. Metaphyseal arteries. Okay, good. Now what do we see over here? Now I'll have the same epiphyseal artery from here, epiphyseal. Yes, I also have one in here. So these ones will be called metaphyseal arteries. Okay, so that is, what we find over here. Of course, I've told you that this guy is what we call the epiphyseal plates. Okay, because that's the growing end of the bone. The epiphyseal plate is still there. That's in children. Okay, maintain it this way. In adults, you have it a similar term, just like this one. Okay, now that's what we see. I also told you now in the second video of orientation to anatomy, or in the third video, I explained to you something on anastomosis. Now I told you whenever we have structures around, okay, like ducts, okay, they can communicate through anastomosis. They form that connection. If there are veins, they will do so. There are arteries, they will do so. Okay, so the same way, now because these arteries, the anastomosis, what I want you to be aware is that the anastomosis is going to be between this kind of metaphyseal arteries, what do you call it, these nutrient arteries, with what we call the epiphyseal arteries. Very important. So now observe here. Because of that, these epiphyseal arteries, yes, they are coming down. Okay, they want to form that kind of anastomotic connection. Okay, so they come down. Okay, the metaphyseal artery, yes, has seen it, so it will form the anastomosis. Okay, so they will be able to form this kind of anastomosis over here. That is normal case scenario. Okay, in case there's no good plate in there, epiphyseal plate in there, okay, then anastomosis goes on correctly, no problem. In children, when we still have epiphyseal plates, just like what we find over here, what we find is that yes, this epiphyseal artery, this artery tries to come down, okay, to come in anastomosis, but it's unable to meet anyone. It's unable to meet anyone over there, okay, to form the pipe, because there's a good plate in here. We had already told you that cartilages are avascular. Okay, importantly, cartilages are avascular. So you have this good plate in there, and it means that there's no way that blood will go in here. Now from here, okay, this one, yes, it wants to anastomose with it, but it fails to meet it. Therefore, it makes a sharp bend. Okay, and then this one too tries to meet, but it's unable to meet it, so it also makes a sharp bend. So they are unable to communicate with these epiphyseal arteries up there, okay, and therefore they form something called hairpin bends. Now, so these things, we call them hairpin bends. Hairpin bends. They form these hairpin bends. Okay, why? Because of failure of anastomosis with the epiphyseal, arteries. Now, where are these hairpin bends, produced? They are produced at the level of the metaphysis. Okay, the epiphyseal ends of the diaphysis. That is where we have these hairpin bends, formed over there. Now, you might have heard of, sometimes you may have bacterial infection, okay, such that they will be so overwhelmed, they will get into your bloodstream and they will form something called septicemia. Okay, overwhelming, bacterial infection, okay, affecting your blood, septicemia. Now, sometimes we say that septicemia is synonymous with sepsis. Yes, in the hospital we tend to use them interchangeably, but there's a thin line. Okay, that overwhelming bacterial infection, okay, invasion in your bloodstream, that is called septicemia. Anything emia has to do with the blood. Okay, but this time around, what we are saying is that your immune system will also respond, and it may respond excessively. Exaggerated immune response to septicemia will be toxic to your own body, and that's what we call the sepsis. Okay, but by and large, we can use them interchangeably anyway. So what we are saying is that what will happen is that yes, it's in the blood. So wherever blood can go, these arteries, they are taking blood to the bone. So it means that blood will be running through them, and this blood has been infected with a lot of bacteria. So what is going to happen? What is going to happen is that yes, because now they can come out, these bacteria, some of them can come out because they are not forming this kind of anastomosis. It means that these arteries, by way of these metaphyseal arteries, these, I mean, in this case, the ascending branch making these kind of hairpin bends, they become what we call end arteries. Okay, I mean structurally, because they are not able to anastomose. Okay, structural end arteries in this case. Okay, so this bacteria sometimes they may come out, and this bacteria they may get lodged, okay, in these hairpin bends areas. Okay, they may get lodged in these hairpin bends areas. So in this way, okay, and whenever we have such a thing, the bacteria will be eroding the bone, and that is what we call osteomyelitis. Osteomyelitis. That is inflammation of these bones we are talking about, osteomyelitis. Okay, so that is, I mean, one thing you should be aware of, osteomyelitis. And so that explains the reason why osteomyelitis is more common in children, and where is it going to take place? In the metaphysis. Okay, so that is one thing you should be aware of. Now, the next thing, now having seen this, the next thing too you have to understand is that last time I told you, we are not done with the blood supply. This cartilage, how will it receive its nourishment? Now it's going to be through diffusion, okay, from here, from these metaphyseal arteries into the bone, okay, from these epiphyseal arteries into the bone, into this cartilage, okay, all these, they will give that kind of supply to this, I mean, epiphyseal plate. Okay, that is what is going to happen. But there's one more thing that we told you the last time, that this bone, okay, that is over here, will be having this connective tissue, dense irregular connection from outside, and I told you that that guy was the periosteum, around the bone, periosteum, dense irregular connective tissue. But even that one, I want to tell you that that one will be differentiated into two, okay? I'll tell you that one. Now this growth in which we need the cartilage, we told you that one is called interstitial growth. Okay, for this one thing before I even talk about that one, this one will have some arteries, okay, in there, several arteries invading, okay, invading it this way. And because this is through what we call the periosteum, then it means that these arteries will be called periosteal arteries. Periosteal arteries. Now, these periosteal arteries are worth mentioning. Why? Because what they are going to do is that we said that the inner 2/3 portion of the cortical bone will be supplied by, of course, this nutrient artery. Now, the outer 1/3 portion, the supply will be received, you know, from what we call this kind of periosteal arteries. Yes. Now, also importantly, whenever someone gets a fracture, the bone gets broken, okay, at a point, then what is happening is that the healing of the bone mainly depends on the nourishment coming from the periosteal arteries. Yes. For that same reason, if someone gets bone pain, the pain fibers, okay, in here, they detect the pain. In the periosteum, they detect the pain. Okay, that is very important. Now, there's one more thing that I want to, you know, tell you over here, that even the periosteum is having two layers. Periosteum is having two layers. So, assuming there's the periosteum, okay, if I want to say there's the periosteum, then we are saying that this periosteum is bilayered, it's having two layers. Okay, now the first layer, which is the one who is very close, okay, to what we call the bone, is called inner cellular layer, inner cellular. And one thing that we find is that those cells, we have some mesenchymal cells which have committed themselves, okay, to becoming bone cells. So we call them osteoprogenitor or osteogenic cells. So it means that this inner layer can also be called osteogenic layer. That's what we see. It means that the one outside, which is the outer, okay, full of connective tissue, so we call it outer fibrous layer. Okay, the fiber component, outer fibrous layer of the periosteum. Now the inner cellular layer, because they will be committed to making the bone cell by way of the osteoblast, we're going through that one. secreting this extracellular matrix. Okay, it means that one will help deposit, the extracellular matrix, the bone matrix, towards the sides of the bone, so that when you were young, your bone the thickness of your bone was smaller, but as you grew, they became larger and larger. Okay, in terms of diameter. So for increase in diameter of the bone, you need the activity of these osteogenic cells, okay, in that kind of inner layer. Okay, increasing in girth of the bone, that one we call it appositional growth. So it means that this inner cellular layer is needed in what we call another growth, which we call it appositional growth. Okay, so that is one useful thing you should be aware of. Okay, so that is the blood supply to, of course, this bone that we've looked at. Okay, so we quickly look at another thing which is very important. Okay, we want to talk about types of epiphysis. Types of epiphysis. We've learned about these epiphysis, but we have types which we have to differentiate them. Types of epiphysis. So the topic is types of epiphysis. Types of epiphysis. So put that point down. Now remember that this is the plural form, so we make it ES. Types of epiphysis. Now, one thing I want you to be aware is that we have 4 types of epiphysis. 4 types, just only 4 types that we'll be looking at. Now, the first type that we have, okay, is known as pressure epiphysis. Pressure epiphysis. Pressure epiphysis. Okay, pressure epiphysis. Now, for pressure epiphysis, one thing that we should be aware is that they are those ones which form joints, okay, with neighboring bones. Okay, now it means that whenever you are going to form joints, okay, we said that your ends of these bones will be covered by what we call Harley College. Anything which forms joints, we use the word articular for it. I've told you articulation is joint. So it means that this type of epiphysis, one of them, because they are going to form joints, they will bear weight. Number one, they will bear weight. Okay, and they are going to be articulate. They are going to form joints, and because they are going to form joints, they will be covered by what we call Harley College. So we are talking about they will bear weight. Usually, they will bear weight. Okay, they will be articular. It means that they form joints. And because they will form joint, they will be covered with Harley cartilage. That's articular cartilage on their surface. So that's the important thing that I want you to be aware of. Now, what are some of these examples? If I take, for instance, the humerus. The humerus is over here. This rounded structure that we have. Okay. So the humerus is able to, articulate with this granule cavity. So they articulate to be covered with Harley cartilage, can bear weight. So this head of humerus is an example. So put these points down. One, head of the humerus. Okay. Now, when you look at the distal end over here, we have what we call condyles. So we have elbow joints over here. These areas today are covered with Harley cartilage. Okay, by way of the lateral modified condyle of the humerus being capitulum, the medial one being of course trochlear, the articular, and therefore they become what we call, pressure epiphysis. Pressure epiphysis. If I look at the head of the radius, pressure epiphysis. Okay, if I look at the distal end, pressure epiphysis. Okay, now if I look at the femur, the head of the femur, pressure emphasis. The condyles of the femur, pressure emphasis. Okay, by way of the lateral condyle of the femur, medial condyle of the femur, pressure emphasis. Okay, that is what we see. They are articular. The same way, if I look at the tibia, these areas, the condyles of the tibia, they are going to form pressure emphasis. Examples like these ones. Okay, so these are the things I want you to be aware of. Okay, the same way, if I look at, for instance, if this is the coracoid process or the condylar. Okay, these are the condyles. So these are the condylar processes of what we call the mandible, for instance. Okay, fitting in the mandibular fossa. Okay, in what we call what we call the temporal bone. Okay, this one is going to bear weight, going to be articulated, to be covered by what we call Harley College. Okay, so it means that it becomes an example of what we call pressure emphasis. Pressure emphasis. Okay, so that's one thing you should be aware of. Okay, so once you have seen pressure emphasis, then there's a second type of emphasis which is very close to where the pressure emphasis is. But that one is not weight bearing, rather tendons of muscles were tied there. Okay, as well as ligament. So they will develop by pull, okay, on these areas by the tendons of these muscles. Okay, so one key thing is that they are non-articular, they will not form joints, they rather provide surfaces for these muscles of tendons of muscles to attach or ligament to attach on. And those ones, that will be the number two. The number two is what we call it traction. The word traction has to do with pull. So they will develop under traction. Okay, so it means that they are non-weight bearing. They are non-articular. They are not covered by Harley College. But the key thing is that they are very close to these pressure emphasis. What are these examples we've been talking about? One of them, now we've seen this. This guy over here, this is the head of the humerus, pressure emphasis. But I'm having these what you call tubercles. So I have what we call greater tubercle of the humerus, lesser tubercle of the humerus. Okay, pressure emphasis, muscles were tied there, tendons of muscles were tied there. I have what you call medial epicondyle. I have lateral epicondyle. These are pressure, so traction emphasis. Okay, that is what we see. Now I have these ones towards the femur. I have greater trochanter of the femur. I have lesser trochanter of the femur. I have what you call medial epicondyle. I have lateral epicondyle. These become what you call traction emphasis. Traction emphasis. Okay. For instance, these are the medial and lateral condyles. Over here, very close to them, I have tibial tuberosity, traction, emphasis. They develop under traction. Okay, so these are some examples that you should be aware of. For instance, if I look over here, I have what you call the mastoid process, which one muscle, sternocleidomastoid, will attach over the pull of this muscle. It becomes an example of a traction emphasis. It will develop under traction. Okay, that's one thing I want you to be aware of. So whenever we give you the scenario, look at it, and then you tell us, what it's going to be. Now, number 3, where the third type of emphasis that we have is known as atavistic emphasis. Atavistic emphasis. Now, I'm sure you learned some biology and came across the word atavism. Now, there are some structures, we find them in human beings to be underdeveloped, but in other primates, in other quadrupeds, okay, they are well developed. That is why in human beings we see them to be attached to a larger bone, so to speak, so that in the other quadrupeds they are separate bones on their own. So that becomes an example of what we call traction emphasis, atavistic emphasis. So what are these examples? The typical example that I want to show you is this one. Now this is the clavicle, the shoulder blade. I have the superior border over here, present with an indentation, and then from there we see this process coming out, which is shaped like the beak of a crow. The beak of a crow. The beak of a crow. Now this guy we find over here, in other quadruplets, there are separate bones on its own. We call it coracoid bone, but this one is part of this main bone, so we call it coracoid process. So this coracoid process becomes an example of what we call atavistic emphasis, of what we call the scapula, atavistic emphasis. Now, if you look at this guy, I'm looking at the middle ear. In the middle ear, we have 3 bones in each of the ears. Okay, we call them ossicles of the ear. And those ones, we have the mist bones, malleus, incus, stapes, and we should also call them hasp bones, hammer, anvil, stirrup. Okay, these are the things you have. But one thing we will see is that now this one we don't have the, malleus over here, or the hammer is not here. So I'm having rather the incus or the anvil over here. And then I have what we call the stapes, okay, having its full process over here. So now what we see is that if you look at the stapes, okay, it presents now this, longer process of the stapes over here, present with a process over here, okay, which I'm running my finger on. We call it lenticular process of incus. Lenticular process of incus. In other animals, there are separate bones on their own in the ear, but in this human beings, it is attached to what we call the incus. Something that other anatomists believe that it should be separate bones should be the 4th ossicle of the ear. That is lenticular process of incus. It is an example of atavistic epiphysis. Now, not only that, even the talus, okay, the superior bone at the ankle region, okay, the talus at the posterior aspect bears, some individuals it bears a process, okay, which we call it posterior tubercle of talus, posterior tubercle of talus. And that posterior tubercle, sometimes we call it os trigonum. Os trigonum. Okay, posterior tubercle of talus. So these are examples of what we call the atavistic emphasis that we've discussed. Now the 4th type of emphasis which you should be aware of, we call it aberrant epiphysis. Aberrant epiphysis. Now the name is aberrant. So if you are calling it aberrant, then what does it mean? It is not supposed to be there, but it finds itself there. Now this is where you find the aberrant epiphysis classically. Now last time when I was teaching you the types of bones, we came across one bone type which morphologically appears long, but we told you that yes, that is not long bone, rather call it miniature long bone. And the reason was that although it resembles this long bone in several respects, having a shaft, having 2 ends, so to speak, but I told you that instead of saying that we are having 2 emphases, no, one of them is functional, the other is non-functional. And what do we mean by that? In the diaphysis, so let me demonstrate that one to you. In the diaphysis, we expect to see something we call primary osculation center, which is common in all these long bones by way of the metacarpals, by way of the metatarsals, by way of the phalanges. Okay, they are there. But the only thing is that there will be only and only one secondary center of state, which is normally present. It will either be present at the head region or it will be present at the proximal base. Okay, we are going to see that. So that if it's supposed to be present at the head and it goes to the base, then that epiphysis where it's at the base becomes aberrant, abnormal one. It's not supposed to be present. Okay, so let's look at that. Now, assuming I have this, let me just sketch out something for you. So this is how generally these miniature long bones appear. This is how they appear. Now, these miniature long bones, what we see is that they present what we call a proximal portion, and this proximal portion we call it base. This is base. It's at the proximal aspect. Then at the distal portion, they have what we call head. Then at the middle portion, okay, which I want to indicate something over here. At the middle portion, we call it shaft, intermediate shaft or body. Now, remember, get to understand this, that in the level of the shaft, I'm trying to do something over here. That is where the bone is going to develop in the shaft. So we have primary ossification center in the diaphysis. So in the shaft, normally we want to see what? One primary center of ossification, which is normally present for whichever miniature long bone we are talking about. However, in the case of these miniature long bones, okay, what we see is that now this is the first, now this is the thumb, and therefore this is the first metacarpal. This is second metacarpal, third, fourth, and of course fifth. So we come from where the thumb is. Okay. Now take this first metacarpal out. The remaining metacarpal, that is 2, 3, 4, and 5. As well as when you come here, these are what we call metatarsals. Metatarsals. This metatarsal 1, we come from where the great toe is. Metatarsal 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now this time also take the first metatarsal out. So we have 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, just like the metacarpals, 2, 3, 4, and 5. One thing I want you to be aware is that there's another center of ossification. So that one, the center of ossification is with the head. Now get to know. That is in case of what you call. So the point over here is that in the head, that is for, there's one secondary center, and therefore this becomes the functional epiphysis of the bone. There's only one epiphysis. Okay, that is for normal. So let me put the word normal. Normal epiphysis. For who? So I told you this time we say what? Metacarpal. Metacarpal. Or metatarsal. It said 2 all the way to 5. 2 all the way to 5. So that is, I mean, one thing you should be aware of. 2 all the way to 5. That's the normal case you want to see, okay, over there. Now, but what if something happens? Rather, this same 2, 3, 4, and 5, rather, if you go and find the if the ossification center didn't happen in the head and it came to the base, or any of them, for any of them, if it happens this way, then what is going to happen is that this one, there's one secondary ossification center here, which should have happened in the head, but it started happening over here. Or it can even happen at both ends. Then the one happening in the base over here becomes an abnormal one. Okay, that becomes an abnormal. Okay, in this case, you say aberrant epiphysis. For who? We are talking about metacarpal. Metacarpal or metatarsal. We say 2 all the way to 5. Aberrant epiphysis. However, in the case of what you call the first, in the case of the first metacarpal, in the case of the first metatarsal, okay, and in the case of the phalanges, okay, of either the hand, okay, so in this case, then what we are going to see is that we are talking about whether it's the proximal, distal, intermediate, whichever, okay, the same way for that of the toes as well. The phalanges over there, they will still have one primary center of ossification in the diaphysis, no problem. They will have it in there, no problem. Is that okay? That is over the ones primary center is normal. But in the case of the epiphysis, the normal one is actually, yes, in the proximal base. So this, okay, I'm having one secondary center of ossification over here. Okay, and this time around, what are we talking about? We are talking about that it is normal. So the black is for normal. Normal for who? For metacarpal. Or metatarsal. 1. Very important. Metatarsal 1. As well as who? And the phalanges. Normal case scenario. Okay. However, if it doesn't happen over here and then it comes down here, or it can be happen here and happen at the same point, then what is happening is that yes, I'm going to have one secondary center of ossification in the head, but this time it's abnormal, so we say it's aberrant. Okay, aberrant epiphyseal for who? This time around we are talking about metacarpal 1 or metatarsal 1. And who? And of course the phalanges. Okay, so please understand this, okay, for us. So these are the types of emphasis that we have. Okay, that is all that you need to be aware of. So the next thing that we want to look at, okay, is to look at some bits of this bone histology that we have. I'm just introducing you to that one, then we will do, the major part of it in our next meeting, and we will delve into ossification of these bones we're talking about. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. So now we want to do a quick orientation, a quick, introductory bits to bone tissue. Bone tissue. Bone tissue. Now there's one thing that I want you to be aware of, that whenever we talk about bone tissue, another word that is synonymous to it, which you should be aware of, is osseous tissue. Osseous. Bone tissue or osseous tissue. Yes, that is what we see. Now, keep an eye on this guy, osseous tissue. Now, remember that whenever we talk about the bone tissue, the name is a tissue. But precisely what basic tissue does it fall under? There are 4 basic tissues. You have epithelial tissue, you have connective tissue, you have muscle tissue, you have nerve tissue. Now, this guy, which is the bone, is an example of connective tissue. But it's not just connective tissue, it's a special type of connective tissue, for the reason that it is having something we call extracellular matrix to be mineralized. Okay, so it becomes hard. That's why bones are hard. Okay, it's not like the ordinary common connective tissue that we have. It is special. Yes. Now, because it's a tissue, then it means that it will be made up of similar cells, so to speak. So you have to also understand these cells of the bone tissue. Now remember, this connective tissue, in addition to cells, the cells will make another product. And that product, because they are found outside the cell, they form something we call extracellular matrix. Extracellular matrix, okay, of the bone. So I'm going to have the living components by way of the cells, and I will have what you call, the products that the cells will make. So just for now, I want to introduce you a bit to it so that we can really delve in our future video. Okay, so that is what we are going to do now. If I'm having this bone tissue, what are we saying? What we are saying is that this bone tissue will be having cells. I will see if I can do the cells today. And then we will also have those products made by the cells. And that is those ones we call extracellular matrix. Extracellular matrix. Extracellular matrix. Now, I want to spend my energy over here because the cells, I need to get time and then explain it better for you. So let's first do this one. Now, if you look at the extracellular matrix, the matrix we are having, okay, we have what we call the inorganic component and the organic component. Inorganic and organic. Now, when you are at the senior high school, you learned about this organic and inorganic thing. Yes, we are applying them here. So, inorganic component, that is what we call the mineral component. So, I have what we call the inorganic component of the bone, extracellular matrix. Then I also have the organic component of the bone. Okay. Now, this inorganic component of the bone, one thing is that I'll take another thing. Okay, this is the bar of the inorganic component. I'll take another thing which is also inorganic. So let me just put it over here like this. And my friends, that guy is water. You know, water is inorganic. So let me bring it this way. Now, it is worth separating it from the inorganic component because the water proportion is very important. Okay, that we get to know. This inorganic component, we also call it mineral component. Mineral component. Now, keep an eye on this guy, which is the M, mineral component. Now, this mineral component is very important because it consists of about 40% of what we call the extracellular matrix of the bone. About 40% of the extracellular matrix is the mineral component. Okay, importantly, you have to understand that. Now, before I will lay the mineral component, I need the organic component to be laid. Without the organic component, the mineral component cannot be laid over there. The mineral component is needed in the hardness of the bone. Why? Mineral, calcium, phosphorus, what have you, they'll be there. Okay, so if you are not having this mineral component, okay, that is something with a condition we call it osteomyelitis. So deficiency of this, of inorganic component, where is the mineral component, will lead to something called osteomyelitis. Now, those of you, if you remember at the senior high school, we learned about rickets. That rickets, is caused by deficiency of vitamin D. In fact, I'm talking about the active vitamin D, calcitriol. If you don't have it, why? Because when you don't have it, then when you eat, the calcium in the diet, okay, will go waste. You will not be massively able to absorb them. And this calcium is part of the mineral component which is needed in the bone. Okay? It means that in your development, if you have such a case, you suffer from what we call rickets. That's the bow leg thing we are talking about. In the case of the adults, we don't call it rickets, we call it osteomyelitis. The word osteo has to do with bone, and Malaysia has to do with softening. You are not having the mineral, matrix. So how can your bone be hard? And therefore, they will bend with respect to the weight that is exerted on it. So that is what we see. Okay, osteomyelitis. Now, this mineral matrix that we are talking about, mineral component, I want you to know the name. Yes. It may be given your exam, you have to be aware of this one. We call it hydroxyapatite. 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 And hydroxyapatite is the formula which we have is this. Okay, hydroxyapatite. Now, some people will call it calcium hydroxyapatite anyway. Now, if you remember, at the senior high school, let's say about molecular formula, empirical formula. So I can get the empirical formula as Ca, 5PO4, then 3, then OH. Okay, that will be the empirical formula in this case. Okay, now remember, okay, in the extraction of metals, you hear something like magnetite, hematite, and what have you. This one is the ore, okay, the mineral in the bone. So in the bone, we can harvest this kind of mineral too. That is hydroxyapatite in there. Okay, so that is one thing. Now, the water is important. The water, yes, contributes about 25%, okay, to the extracellular matrix. Important. Then, this organic component, one thing I want you to be aware is that now water is important for metabolic activity. The cells are going to be there, okay, all those kind of movements, yes, making, the bone, okay, be able to perform all those metabolic, processes, needs water medium for all these things. Now, the organic components, one thing you should be aware, okay, is that we have two main components. We have what we call collagenous components, and then you have the non-collagenous part. Okay, so please understand this one: collagenous and non-collagenous, components of the organic part. Now, the collagenous components, yes, it's collagen. The protein is collagen. Remember that collagen is the most abundant protein that we have in the human body, the most abundant protein. So this collagen we are talking about precisely, it is collagen type 1. Collagen type 1 that we have over here. Very important. Now, keep an eye over here that collagen is a protein. Then we have other proteins which are non-collagenous. So the organic components can also be called the protein components. So that if you have seen that the inorganic is 40%, water is 25%, together you are getting about 65%. So it means that this one will be protein component, contributing about 35% to, of course, the bone extracellular matrix. Okay, that is what we see over here. Now, this organic component, which I'm saying protein, keep an eye on the P, the protein here. Okay. Now, the non-collagenous components, the main ones I want you to be aware will be these three things I want you to be, aware of. Now we have what you call, now, whenever we talk about extracellular matrix, we are talking about fibers, and the fibers, they are the collagenous fibers we talked about. And we also have something we call ground substance, which will be calcified later, okay, by the inorganic component. So the ground substance, there are glycoproteins, proteoglycans, there are certain things in there. They are those ones I want you to be aware of. This one. We have what we call osteocalcin, osteonectin, and yes, maybe right, osteopontin. Okay, these are parts of what we call the non-collagenous components of the extracellular matrix of the bone. Okay, so that is, one thing that you should be aware of. Now, I told you that this P, keep an eye on it, especially for collagenous component. So what it means is that assuming you have a condition which is not permitting you to make these collagenous fibers or these proteins are not there, then what will happen is that you will suffer rather from what we call osteoporosis. So the P over there is for porosis. Now, studies have shown, okay, that yes, your bone will become very light. It means because you are having osteoporosis, then what it means is that you are not getting organic component. It means you cannot also lay enough inorganic, because we need this one so that we can lay the inorganic component. Okay, that's what we see. So it means that now one thing is that especially in postmenopausal women, they tend to suffer from this kind of osteoporosis. Okay, because the most functional estrogen, which is estradiol, okay, after menopause becomes very limited. You cannot produce it. Although you may be producing estradiol or estrogen, okay, by what we call the adrenal cortex, zona glomerulosa over there, you may be doing that, but that one will not really help you out so much. Okay, sometimes there's that kind of estrogen therapy to help them with some of these things. So if you have any old woman out there, okay, their bones tend to be thin, okay, as they age, becomes more hollow, osteoporosis. They don't take care, they may get a fractured bone, which may take a very long time to heal. So that is what I have for you today. The next time you see the cells, for now I can mention the cells to you. One of them will be osteoprogenitor cells. They are the mesenchymal cells which have committed themselves to making the bone matrix. They will talk about osteoblasts, talk about osteocytes, the mature bone. The blasts are going to make the extracellular matrix. Then we're also going to talk about what we call the, osteocytes, the mature bone, which will maintain the matrix. Then we have some kind of cell which will be coming from the bone marrow as monoblasts. In the blood, peripheral blood, there will be monocytes, okay, which will fuse up to about 50 of them, becoming what we call, osteoclasts, so that they can resorb the bone. Now, as you are there, there's bone formation and bone resorption. That's bone breakdown taking place in you at the moment as we stand now. Yes. That is what is happening. So we'll be explaining all those concepts. Now introduce you to the two kinds of, bone tissue by way of the spongy bone and the compact bone. Okay, I believe you are going to make a date with me, and then from there we look at ossification by way of intramembranous ossification, endochondral ossification. We look at the systematic mechanism, okay, involved in all these things. I'm very grateful for your time this evening. Have a good night, all of you, and may the good Lord richly bless you. Amen.